My sincere and distinct pleasure to introduce my friend Alter Wiener, who at 92 years young is a true gem in our communities. After moving to Oregon in 2000, Alter has given over or approximately about 1,000 community talks at centers, at churches, and mostly in our schools. He's here to share his story about why he would like to see Holocaust and genocide education added as a component to our social studies curriculum. And then we'll also introduce Claire Sarnowski, who can tell you from a student's perspective why she thinks it's so important.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good afternoon. While being incarcerated in concentration camps, I had two dreams. One, to be reunited with my family, which tragically did not materialize. I'm the only survivor of my immediate family. The other dream was to be able to eat as much bread as I want, to walk freely, to sleep on a mattress, to be able to associate. This dream did materialize in this blessed country of the United States. However, I have never dreamt that one day I shall be invited by legislators of a state in the United States who are willing to listen to me in presence of a distinguished audience. Many of you are highly educated. I am just a graduate of 5 elementary classes. I'm indeed humbled to be your guest today. I'm grateful to all of you. I lived in Forest Hills, New York for many years, and I have never been asked to share my life story with students or worshipers. Like many other Holocaust survivors, I focus on adjusting to a new life in a new country. At the beginning, daytime, I used to clean toilets to make a living and study in the evening the English language and accounting. Eventually, I became an accountant and had a full-time job till the age of 73. In April 2000, I left New York for Hillsboro, Oregon. I was approached by the Oregon Holocaust Research Center in Portland asking me to share my life story. After hesitation, I made my first presentation in December 2000 at Century High School in Hillsboro. The students were very attentive, and later on, their teacher, Erica Sanders, gave me about 100 letters from her students. In those letters, the students expressed their appreciation for sharing my life story, which in many instances changed their life for the better. And in some cases, it saved their lives. I felt gratified and a moral obligation to continue to share my life story for as long as my health permits. Warner Pacific College in Portland awarded me an honorary bachelor degree because the faculty and the students felt that the Holocaust survivors' messages are so educationally relevant. A 7th grader in McMinnville who contemplated suicide because of problems she had to face at home, wrote to me that she had changed her mind after my presentation because she had realized that despite all her difficulties, she was still blessed. Everything that I, as a teenager, had been deprived of. A 10th grader in Hillsboro decided not to drop out from high school, realizing that she was indeed privileged to get an education after hearing that I couldn't go to school. As a Holocaust survivor, I have never been able to bring down an iron curtain on my past. For me, the horrific memories from the Holocaust are still fresh. The ashes of I rose from are still smoldering. I'm tormented by memories, even as I try to carry on with my life. I'm crying in silence. I'm still in pain. I'm tortured by nightmares. The Holocaust is a ghastly and impulsive historical nightmare. Not all physical and mental scars can be completely healed with passing years. However, I cannot let grief immobilize me. I realize it's beyond the understanding of most people to fathom the horror and dread that I have witnessed and endure. The Holocaust is indeed behind comprehension. My tribulations during the Holocaust are so removed from people's daily life that those horrors sound unbelievable to them. My father was murdered by the Germans when I was 13 years old. Then my school years ended. From the age of 15 till the age of 18, I was incarcerated in 5 different camps where I had been tortured and starved. The allotted time for me, my presentation here today, doesn't permit me to go into much detail. One episode stands out in my life story. A middle-aged German woman risked her life to help me by hiding sandwiches for me for 30 days in a factory where both of us worked. She lit a candle in the darkness of my surroundings. This episode is recorded in a children's book, Gifts from the Enemy, written by Trudy Ludwig, a very popular author of children illustrated books. Today, you are embracing me with compassion and politeness, thus illuminating my path of revival. I'm grateful to your invitation to share with you briefly my life story. It is a gesture that I could not have dreamt of in bondage. For the last 17 years, I have shared my life story with 980 live audiences of students in middle and high school, colleges, universities, as well as adults in houses of prayer and prisoners in jail, all located in the state of Oregon and South Washington. During one lecture, a World War II veteran approached me. He was an officer in the US Army that liberated the infamous camp Buchenwald in Germany in 1945. With tearful eyes and in front of the church congregation, he said, "Mr. Wiener, for my children and for my grandchildren, you must have your life story in print." I promised him and wrote in 2007 my autobiography, From a Name to a Number. I seek no fame and no financial gain. My profits from the sale of the book, if any, are being donated to charitable causes. The responses of my live audiences or readers of my autobiography are very compelling. Sometimes I am moved to tears by the expressed sympathy for my traumatic past, or reading about the person who had written to me about their own tribulations. You may take a glimpse of them. There are 200 letters here, and they are about suicide, about going back to school, about loving your parents, staying with your parents. Very inspirational. You can have a glimpse if you want to. This is just 200 out of 88,000. But each and every letter tells me how much they learned, not just the chapter on history, how much they can apply the benefits of the derived message here, and that is reflected in their letters. Many suicidal students change their minds of killing themselves when they have realized that their problems have been minimal in comparison to my problems at their age. Hundreds of school dropouts went back to school when they realized that I had to work daytime to make a living and study in the evening to get my equivalent high school diploma at the age of 35. Having experienced many traumatic events I'm obviously not a normal person. I might appear to be a normal person, but I'm absolutely not. If you are tortured once, you are tortured for the rest of your life. John McCain said it after being in prison in Vietnam for 5 years. The other day, after a speech in a public library, a young man approached me saying, I know what you mean by saying that you are not normal. I am not normal either. And I looked at him and I wondered, why did he say that? He looked to me to be a normal person, a young man. Well, I came back from Iraq with an artificial leg. And it fits so well that people don't realize that I'm disabled. But when I come home to take a shower, I take off my artificial leg, and I realize that I'm not normal and never will be. Same here. I have physical and mental scars till this very day. I have nightmares. I have no control. So I'm not normal either. I wish I could be, but this lives within me. Today, the Holocaust moves from living memory to the archives. The ranks of Holocaust survivors are rapidly dwindling. 100 Holocaust survivors and 1,300 World War II veterans die every day. The landscape of the remembrance is changing. It becomes imperative that the children and grandchildren and future generations of all people assume the holy task of reminding and remembering the legacy of the Holocaust. At this time, we should all strive incessantly to divert the rivers of hatred so that another Holocaust should never, never happen again. The United Nations adopted a resolution in November 2005 that all nations would commemorate the victims of the Holocaust each January 27th. The United Nations will see to it that all nations should have the educational material pertaining to the Holocaust. Learning about the Holocaust is not just a chapter in recent history, but a derived lesson how to be more tolerant, more loving, and that hatred is eventually self-destructive. Be better rather than bitter. Remember, be better rather than bitter. Ergo, teaching the Holocaust should be taught in all public and private schools in the state of Oregon, as well in every other state in the United States. So far, as mentioned before, 10 states, California, Connecticut, Florida, Illinois, Kentucky, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, and Rhode Island, where teaching the Holocaust is mandatory. I wish and hope that Oregon becomes the 11th state. When teaching the Holocaust became mandatory in the state of Michigan, Becca Buzzard, a teacher in Detroit, has complied with the new law as reflected in her view from name to a number posted on Amazon in February 2012. And that is what she writes. I ordered 130 books for my 7th graders. I teach ELA in Detroit, Michigan, and I can honestly say that this book has impacted my students in such a way that I believe some will remember the story forever. Alter's story is emotional, inspirational, unimaginable. This is a must to read. It delivers a message of hope, faith, courage, and triumph. Most importantly, it reminds us not to take our lives and our loved ones for granted, a message that I believe is lost in this generation. I can only hope that more people read this story and never forget what happened. I will continue to share it with my 7th graders each year, and I hope it touches their life as it touched mine. At the end of the year, the same 130 books were given to the new 7th graders. This is just one example of how mandatory Holocaust education has impacted life of students, teachers, and anyone else connected. It's imperative that we learn from the past and not make the same mistakes in the future. In conclusion, I believe that all students in the state of Oregon will benefit by following Michigan and other states which have already adopted mandatory teaching the Holocaust and other genocides. I'm confident that the Education Committee in front of us will consider my plea. Thank you all for coming and showing your compassionate thought for me and my efforts, to perpetuate the Holocaust legacy. Thus, the slogan, "Never Again," will become a vow for all humanity. Thank you all for coming.